Guys, we're gonna start with the meeting. We wouldn't be voting until after the presentations anyways, and we have a lot on the agenda, so we're gonna get started, all right? First up, we have Michael Hahn presenting about Slack communication.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm gonna be over here just so I can kind of do this. But so basically, Slack is a communications platform. MSC switched over to it maybe a couple weeks ago, or like a month ago now. So basically, how it works is the best way to think of it is it's essentially a bunch of different chat rooms. So if you look at inside, we have a bunch of different chat rooms devoted to each of the different projects we have. So I just sent a bunch of updates for each one, like today. So there's a lot of stuff that Bobby hasn't read yet. This is Bobby's computer. But if you guys look at these different projects, we can specify communications for a specific project within these channels. So I don't know. Cody's not messaging. Okay. And basically, I made a new one. The biggest benefit of Slack is that you can, there's a lot of great integrations in here. So let's say I wanted to post a Google Doc link to the minutes from last week. If I go into the Slack, I can paste them, and then it gets replaced by the link to the actual document. And then from there, I can click it and open it, and you can see the minutes from last week, just like that. So it's pretty convenient in that respect, and it also automatically shares it. So if it's like a private document, you share it in a channel, it'll share it with all the people in that channel. Next, you can also do another cool thing is Dropbox integration. So, I mean, basically this came about for like code projects. So like there's GitHub integration, all that stuff. We don't need that, but we do like the Dropbox integration. So if I paste a link to a Dropbox file, it should do the same thing. Yep. So these are the FSC minutes from last year that are in my Dropbox that I took very good minutes for. So you can look at them. And so those are the very detailed minutes that I took. So yeah, that's pretty much it, unless anyone has any questions. I sent you guys all the link. If you guys aren't in FSC, you guys have received the link. You don't have to join, but if you want to be involved in like only certain discussions, so let's say like I don't really care about this presentation channel, I don't have to be involved in the conversation, and I'll never see any of it if I don't want to. If you want to join the Slack, you can still do so. You just have to sign up with your RPI email, and like anyone can join if they want. But I didn't share it with everyone on campus because I know one would get anything done. Any questions? Okay, well that's all I have.
Before we move on to our next presentation, I notice a lot of you have been on your laptops. I would like all of you to keep those closed. We should be giving these presenters our full attention. Cody, you can have yours open, of course. I'm going to be having this here for the agenda, but everyone else, please close your laptops.
You need to go to the PDF itself and do control now.
Same thing with phones, by the way. Nice try. All right, next up. Listen up, guys. Next up, we have Elizabeth Anderson, Chair of the Student Sustainability Task Force, presenting about the Green Revolving Fund. Elizabeth, you can start when ready.
Yeah, I was gonna wait for it to come up. Maybe. Okay. Control L, or if it's a Mac, yeah, probably Command L.
Control L. Come on. There you go.
Cool. Hi, my name is Elizabeth Anderson. I'm the chair of the Student Sustainability Task Force. I'll be presenting today on our preliminary work on a green revolving fund for RPI. This project is led by Dan Suzy, who has an exam right now, so he can't be here. If anything's unclear, if you can go ahead and like ask me now. But if you have any larger discussing questions, if you could wait till after, that'd be great.
One final point before you continue. Sorry about that. Can everybody please try to get on cue during the presentation? If you see, this is a long one, so if you see anything you have a comment about, you can raise your hand. We'll put you on cue early. Continue.
Next slide. So you might be wondering why a student club is bringing a project before the student senate. As CSTF is not an ordinary club. It started as a president's cabinet project, and then at one point it was a student senate subcommittee before becoming its union recognized club. And in past years, we've worked closely with faculty, staff, and the administration, as well as students to improve the sustainability of Rensselaer. We've obtained our money through grants as opposed to through the union or, more RPI source. We see ourselves as a task force for sustainability instead of more a club. And based on many discussions with the administration, that's still the view there. SSTF has two main functions. First, it seeks to green RPI, which is what a project like this is trying to do. So one example is a fair number of the recycling bins on campus were won through an SSTF competition. Another way that we work to promote sustainability is by trying to increase collaboration and communication between the different groups. Next slide. So this is the basis of a green revolving fund. You start out with some money that's put into it, and then you use this money to fund a project that makes back money. So this might be something that improves energy efficiency. This might be solar panels or something, something that makes money. And then you take the money, you build a project, and then you have money come back, and then that money goes through again and again and again, with the idea that you keep on going. Lexi, is it now?
I was just curious, when you say money saved from the project, is because you're saving on energy, or is it that you're getting money back from some other place as a subsidy for going green?
It would be, that could be one source, but yeah, more like say you do a project, say you install LEDs, in a building, and then you see that the amount of energy that you're using to light those, that building is a lot less, and that would be money that then you would use, and you can basically it just keeps on going. That's why it's called a revolving fund. Next slide. So then I want to talk briefly about why I'm here today. There's 3 reasons. First of all, we need more members. We currently have about 13 students on our mailing list, not including officers and people we know who are inactive, and we'd like to shoot for about 20 active students to 20 very active students to really be getting this project going, doing proposals, outreach, and so on. We also need student support for this to go through, because it's important. And second, we want to be as transparent as possible. We don't want to just come up with a project, no one having an idea what's going on, and there being a lot of confusion. We want to make it clear what we're planning on doing in every step. So this is the beginning step. And lastly, this is a large-scale project, and a lot of you have had experience working with that sort of project. So I would love to hear your advice on this sort of thing. Next slide. Okay. So we're working on the exact structure. The general idea is that members of the RPI community would present projects. So this might be, a group of students. This might be, faculty who have an idea, and so on. And then the projects, you'd have a proposal that'd be pretty detailed. You'd come up, you'd figure out what is the ROI, return on investment, what's the feasibility of that project being built. And then there'd be a committee that would select which projects would be done, probably focusing on okay, how much does this project earn back? Does it meet, whatever our requirements are? And then also on, how much is it improving sustainability at RPI? And we'd also need to come up with set guidelines for how that funding would work, because one option is in a loan, but that could cause problems. Students should be taking out loans for projects. So it would probably be something where the money is you're spending the money on something, and then the money that is made back goes from whatever budget it used to be spent on to the Green Revolving Fund. Next slide. So the startup fund could come from several places. An option that's been done that we don't want to pursue is from students. One option that we might pursue is from the endowment. We would have, basically the way that would work is there'd be all projects would have to have a higher return on investment than the endowment. So, they would have to be the projects that make back the most money. The median ROI for green revolving funds is 28%. So that's not unheard of. Another option is somewhere in RPI's operating fund. And then there's 2 others from alumni contributions and from grants, both of which might be more supplementary to one of the other 2. Next slide. So many other colleges have successfully started and implemented a green revolving fund. Harvard has seen a lot of success. They started out with $1.5 billion revolving fund in 1882, and they've used it for a lot of different projects with an average ROI of 29.9%. And they now have in their revolving fund of $12 billion and it's getting a lot of projects done. Next slide. So there's some benefits for the GRF would benefit the campus in several ways. Quite obviously, it would reduce the environmental impact of RPI. Once projects were implemented, RPI would be consuming fewer fossil fuels, producing less greenhouse gases, and using less water. And one thing that you can consider is many people, they factor sustainability of the college into their decision. I know I did. I looked at the research that was done in my original department of architecture. Then it was Visuta, the Living and Learning Community. So something like this could be something that could attract students to RPI. But the GRF has many more benefits. It promotes student research of sustainable technologies, both what already exists and maybe even, finding new technologies. We are a research university after all, as well as finding grants and coming up with proposals for how these projects work. And all of these are things we are going to need to do in the real world, especially since environmental issues are a huge problem. And then also the GRF will save money in the long term for RPI through reduced energy, water usage. Then lastly, the GRF will help get projects implemented that will help both the campus and the environment. I remember a few years back, I think what's now FSC was considering trying to retrofit Shades Labs or some other buildings where it's drafty and sometimes too warm or too cold. And this is something that will improve how people feel, their comfort level, and it will improve the sustainability. Next slide. So to go a little more in depth with how RPI stacks up with peer institutions in terms of sustainability, last year I did a sustainability report for RPI using OSHI STARS metrics. These metrics ask for a huge variety of questions relating to sustainability, some more relating to sustainability than others. I'm not going to go into depth about it right now. You can find it at the short link down there. But RPI performed a lot less well than several peer institutions who have done the same report, including Cornell, Carnegie Mellon, and BU. And RPI is a research and STEM-based cause as the potential to be at the forefront of sustainability research and operations, and it should be. So currently what we have the research for one proposal, like a project proposal, and then research for how the GRF would work in general, how they've worked at other colleges. It's quite actually a broad amount of research. Next slide. Well, we have an idea of how the fund might operate. We need a very concrete proposal for how this would work. Obviously working with the administration on this sort of thing. We also want to provide 3 fully written sample project proposals so that way we can show these are potentials for where the money could go. So one of these proposals just needs to be written basically is for solar panels. We want to do 2 more. Another possibility is energy efficiency. And again, retrofitting not only saves energy, but it would also make the building more comfortable for the people who who are taking classes in it or working in it. Next slide. So I want to make sure I thank all the students who have helped with this project. It's the last one. And lastly, I just want to again stress the importance of this and other sustainability projects. A GRF would not be for the sole benefit of SSTF or any other particular club. It would benefit the student body as a whole, as well as faculty, staff, and administration. Students with an interest in sustainability might come to RPI instead of other schools that are like currently seen as greener. Projects could improve the comfort of building occupants, as well as giving students valuable research experience in conducting a project proposal and seeing a project implemented. Our generation is the one that will be affected by environmental issues. We are already seeing that through hurricanes, sea level rise, and so on. And I firmly believe that RPI should be at the forefront of sustainability. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna open a queue. For this queue, we'll be giving our guests in the room equal precedence, so if you'd like to speak, feel free to raise your hand.
Students first.
This is kind of like a question and statement that hits on the proposal and the, I guess, recruitment of new students. I'm just curious to what level you've spoken to the STS department, because I know that there's a freshman class, environment and politics. There are a lot of very environmentally knowledgeable students, and part of their grade is based on the creation of a sustainability project proposal. So I'm just curious as to what level you've spoken to the STS department to work with that class.
I'm actually a co-terminal student with both my undergraduate and graduate degrees in the STS department.
Okay.
One of the graduate TAs did reach out to me saying that there were some students interested on something similar to this. We have in the past definitely gone into those classes and talked. I'm assuming that will happen, maybe not necessarily this semester since it's close to being done, but probably future semesters. I've definitely gone into multiple classes and spoken with them.
Okay.
And then again, I mean, once I graduate, it becomes different, but right now I'm on the graduate student email list for STS. So.
What, if any, projects have previously been done that are green revolving in nature at RPI?
None. This would be a new thing, the Green Revolving Fund.
I was just curious, this is kind of along with Stephen's question, if you've approached any faculty members at possibly letting students get like an independent study credit or the undergraduate research projects. I feel like you need a lot of work out of the students in order to, write these proposals for like X million dollars, for a particular project. And I just feel, if you're able to offer course credit for students, maybe it could help you gain more membership in a better way. But I'm not sure, have you thought about doing that, or?
The Green Revolving Fund actually came out of it was an independent study project. So,
The what?
what we have so far was an independent study project.
Oh, okay. So
I don't,
you can't get course credit.
It's something, the difficulty with this, especially now the new way, the independent studies are now, they're a little bit more concrete in like what you have to do. Like when I was first did mine as a sophomore, it was just like, you just get your evaluation, decide your form, and you're set. Nowadays, I understand it has to be more of a syllabus. It's a little bit harder. And that is definitely a possibility. The one thing in my experience with getting independent studies and helping other people get them is that you kind of have to be like, yes, this person will actually do the work, because the professors don't want to have to fail somebody who's doing an independent study, or like they want it to be easy for them. They don't want it to be hard. But yeah, no, that's a good suggestion to continue trying to do that.
Perhaps I misunderstand exactly the definition of a green revolving fund, but how would you classify the green roof over the bookstore?
Well, the green roof, I don't know. To my knowledge, it doesn't save any money, or if it does, it doesn't go back towards other projects. So that's the difference, is like the money that's saved would go towards other green projects. Certain projects are good projects, but they're not going to make back money. So those ones would not be covered by a green revolving fund. Does that make sense? So like the green the green roof, I mean I don't think it saves any money. It's just like it's more like a statement and it saves the environment.
So maybe I'm just blind or a first semester freshman, but I haven't really seen much advertising for this club, and I think you maybe, yes, have you?
We actually had some problems with, I stepped in as chair only in October.
Okay.
The person who was chair before me resigned, and not a lot was done. I have been posting to class year Facebook groups, to RPI Reddit. We have a page, but unfortunately, a lot of that early outreach time was lost, and this is something that we would intend to focus on in future semesters.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a good comment. I mean, have you seen any of the Facebook?
I have not.
Okay. And we've definitely been reaching out to the people who are already involved in environmental organizations. We have several Facebook groups and the like for that.
So if I understand this correctly, the idea behind a GRF is that an initial investment over time will save money and contribute back to the fund for future investments, which will eventually compound to a larger and larger fund, correct? Mm-hmm. It seems like you've outlined a lot of good reasons for the adoption of this project. What do you feel at this point are the biggest barriers to its success?
We need to get the money. And then we also, another important thing is to make sure we have a concrete way of making, which projects are decided on, who decides, something that works for everybody, especially from wherever the money comes from. Because clearly if the money's coming from a part of the administration's budget, that's something that, we're going to need to be able to make sure that that money is definitely getting made back. That projects, like for example, if a project, you could think of projects that if they are not completed, that then they won't be making any money back. So we have to be able to make sure that there's definite ways to make sure those projects are completed. It has to be strict to make sure things work.
I guess maybe that.
Yeah, thank you.
Kristen?
My question is, I guess, what administration is involved and who's in charge of actually calculating if you're saving money? So if you install buildings install windows in a building to save on heating costs, I guess who analyzes that the money saved was from the windows and not because we had a warmer than usual winter?
That's a good point. Yeah. That's definitely something that would have to go in there. I know for Harvard, apparently one thing they did was they retrofitted I don't remember what it was. It might have been lighting in one building and left a nearly identical building regular, and they saw how much it shaved. So that's, that sort of thing is one. There's a lot of ways that you can make these calculations to see how much you're saving. For example, if you know how much these lights are on, you can figure out based on that how much energy you're using. Another thing that you can do is you can install systems to more closely meter each one. For example, you could make it so that way, like for the union, you can measure all the energy that's used in this room versus the room next door.
My question was who is going to calculate, not how you calculate.
That would be something that we have to figure out, but I presumably it would either be the committee or there be ways. I don't know. That's a good point.
Just to address what Jenna asked, so Dan, who's I guess the project lead now.
Yes.
He's working through the FSC, so I guess it's not really a joint project, but he's in FSC, so he's giving us updates, and then through that we can publicize through FSC as well. So just as clarification.
I mean, the option to make it joint project, that's there. SSTF kind of has a history of working with Senate in the past.
I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but you're next to the queue.
Yeah. So I don't know if I maybe misheard this, but you have a disaster prevention mechanism. So what happens if the ROI is not met? Who's responsible? And do you have a buffer for that? You say, okay, this year it wasn't met, but we're going to continue. Or what's your limit on oh, this is not making money?
That's a good point. Yeah, that's something else that would have, like, that's why you choose projects that you know are definite. That have, like, for example, there's certain projects that other colleges have done, and so we know that those ones have made that X amount. So those are, good projects to start with. So we have to make sure that that's why we have to make sure that we choose ones with concrete proposals and ones that we know can happen. But that is a good thing to include. Thank you.
So on the topic of ROI, what stats are you looking for? What kind of return on investment, both in percentage and in time? Because I understand time is, of course, a major factor.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we're still working out. What is the best? I know Harvard's ideal was like within 11 years, but most of them I think were met within like 3 years. The ROI.
I don't really know how endowment works, but is there a possible collaboration with local colleges like Sage or UAlbany in terms of revolving funds between our schools?
It's an interesting idea. I've never heard of such a thing happening, but that would be interesting. I can look into it, or if Dan look into it. Yeah.
I'm just curious, so you keep on mentioning how like Harvard and MIT and all these other schools have the GRF. Have you tried to personally reach out to any of these organizations to get the specifics about how they run, how they're able to continue making money through their projects and so forth?
I personally haven't. The person, Kenny, who was working on it last year may have. And then it's something that Dan can probably do. I'm not the project lead, I'm just the SSTF chair. But that's something I would definitely suggest to him. They have a lot of materials already online. Like I keep citing Harvard because they have like a lot of stuff online about theirs. That's like really easy to like find and read. So it's a great resource. But yeah. Other questions?
John, did you have your hand up? No. Okay. The queue's empty.
Any other questions for Elizabeth? Okay, well, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you very much. Your feedback's really helpful.
Great job, Elizabeth. All right, so we're going to be moving on to our third presentation of the day. This presentation is by Anthony Barbieri, the chair of the Judicial Board, a union developer and a member of the Rules and Elections Committee, presenting on an electronic voting project. You all set?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Alright, so as Cal mentioned, I'm Anthony Barbieri. I work at the union as a systems administrator with Pranav, who's a software engineer, or the leads of both teams. And we pursued a project for the electronic voting system in collaboration with the members of RNE.
So I guess I'll take it from here until later in the presentation. So really exciting for next semester. Next semester's moving forward. We really want to have an electronic way of voting. So I guess I'm going to get right into it with you guys. So the most important part for the Senate and specifically RNE would be the administrative view of the product. So the kind of workflow we want to have with this is that students are going to be able to, well, first of all, when an election is created, an RNE member would have to log in and initiate the election so that they can set up a booth so that people can vote. So this prevents people from voting in their own rooms. And pre this workflow, creating elections is something that RNE members are also going to be able to do, so that they'll be able to create an election, create races within it, create referendums, upload initiates and candidates into the race, and have modifiers on who can view it. So this is a race for sophomores, or this is a race for graduate students. This is restricted to Greek life only or non-Greek life, so independent votes, et cetera, et cetera. So this is all things that the RNE will be able to do, and this is something we'll support in the future, and we can add to this, and I would actually really like feedback from you guys by the end of this presentation for anything you might have. So this is going to be like a mock-up of the view of what students are going to see once the election is started. So users are going to walk up to the booth, and this is what they're going to see. My impression was that we're going to have swipe cards, so they'll be able to swipe their identification card and it'll take them to the next screen, which will be able to choose their cohort. So speaking for myself, like I was a junior by credits, but I was class of 2017, so you'll be able to choose one or two of what you can vote for, but you can only choose one, so your choice. Next, you'll be able to see all the races, the ability to enter independent candidates, and all the referendums. So yes or no, and then you check off who you want in the specific race. So whatever races that you decide to enter. Then finally, congrats. This is the point where you turn around and you get your free awesome mug that everybody goes to vote for. Some guarantees about the system. If I went a little bit too fast. I know that security is a big issue, and as the Senate and R&E really came up to us and kind of stressed this fact, there's under no circumstances will anybody, including R&E, be able to view who voted for what. So that's completely anonymous. That's for the user who voted, and that's only for them. All we'll know is how many votes somebody received. And there's no way you can he'll go over this, but there's no way you can keylog this. It's not stored in the database. It's not sent across the wire at the same time. There's absolutely no way this is ever going to be visible. The next guarantee is ease of use. We're really designing this so that very non-technical people or very technical people won't find this a frustrating system, and that it'll be very reliable and intuitive in how it works. There'll be suggestions on what to do everywhere. So swiping your card. What is a cohort? Like, why are you choosing between these two things? Like the explanation for everything. And it'll make it very straightforward on what exactly students do. And finally, reliability. Anthony, again, is going to go over a little bit of this, but it's going to be hosted locally in the Union servers, so we have full jurisdiction over access to the servers, firewall access, blah, blah, blah. But mostly, it's not going to go down in the case of an election. And we know because we've developed systems that all students here use before, so we know that it'll be able to stand up to use. Finally, the timeline. We really expect to have an initial prototype very soon. So we should be able to collaborate with R&E and show them how this is going to work actually in a development server environment. And then we're going to go over winter break with new features, communicate with R&E electronically, email, Slack perhaps. And then add, debug and add modifications to the product. And finally, we do hope for it to be released by elections of next semester. So, with that being said, I think I'll hand it over to Anthony, and he'll take you through the rest.
Okay. So as Pranav mentioned, it's going to be hosted on our own servers. This allows us, we don't have to buy new technology at all. It just goes into the existing workflow of paid positions that are funded by the activity fee. As with other projects that we've been pursuing lately, we will be using version control, so it'll be really easy to add and edit. If that breaks things, we can revert it to an older version. This allows for flexibility, so if we do realize, hey, maybe this line of code needs an adjustment, it's really easy to update that. So big takeaways from this, there's no more sleepless R&E members. That's a really awesome thing. There's also elimination of hand counting, which could lead to inaccuracy, and it also prevents voting multiple times. As Pranav mentioned, because the actual record of the vote, the RIN will be sent one way, then the actual vote without the RIN will be sent another direction. So we can have a table of these people have voted, and then here's the votes, but because that information is not in the same place, we can prevent multiple times while allowing anonymity of those votes once they're in the database. It also allows for instantaneous results, so you don't have to use a Scantron machine, which could misread the bubbles filled out. Also, the results can be published if we so choose. Historically, they've been published on Flagship, but we could also make a public view once R&E decides to release the results of an election. This would also allow for history, so if you want to look back and say, oh, who won the election in 2009, you'd be able to look back and select that. Any questions?
Right, I started today with an answer presentation, so Shoshana will be first.
First, your presentation did show graduates as a cohort, so you definitely need to include that. Secondly, when you're swiping your card, how do you make sure that you have all the information attached to that RIN number, including what cohorts you're eligible for, and if you're independent and green, because that's changing constantly, especially like if you're in a pledge class and you have to go and seek that information?
Yeah, so just based on the card, we get your RIN. based on that RIN, we can query our own union database that powers CMS. So we have all that information already existing within our repository of resources. So it's not actually pulling. Then that information is updated. We do get a feed from the institute that's updated pretty every once in a while. Yeah. It's daily. Yeah.
Banner.
Yeah. Daily. And the cohorts, it was just an example, but it would give you any options of cohort or credit that you would be eligible for. So usually it's 2, so it might be graduate. Graduate would definitely be 1, but usually in the case of undergraduates, you'd either be greeted with 1 or 2. If there's only 1, it'd probably go straight to the vote screen.
You kind of answered my question, but I still have it. You offer that cohort choice screen to prevent somebody from picking one they're not eligible for. Is it, like you said, it's only going to present ones they're eligible for, or what happens?
Yeah, I can take it. It's only going to prevent ones you're eligible for if you're eligible for more than 1. If that made sense. To be clear, if you're only eligible for 1 specific cohort, I'm only a graduate student, it's not even going to display that screen. It's going to go straight to your voting. For students who have more credits than they are what class they entered in, it'll display just the 2 they're eligible for, and only choose 1.
I'm the vice chair of the R&D committee, and just because there are some things that we talked about, like we've talked about in committee that they're included in some of the stuff, it's going to, one of the things that R&D always worries about is the fact that we have to keep with checking RINs and stuff. With the Scantrons, we have to check how many times, if there are duplicate entries from the same RIN, then it will charge to that person's Bursar account for the extra months they took, but that person and their votes don't count. Essentially, if somebody votes currently, people can vote as many times as they want, but only one of their votes are counted, since the Scantron will pull up the fact that we got a double hit on this RIN, and they're also charged their Bursar account. With this new system, the code will simply, Anthony, correct me on this, but it will simply block when you swipe your card. It'll just simply use the list of RINs that have already been entered in by swipes to say you voted already and prevent you from being able to vote again.
Yeah, so it'd have a screen that comes back that says, yep, you've already voted. So if an RNE member sees that, obviously they won't give them out another month.
So since it's all going to be electronic, like what's your plan for the hardware for voting? Because I know with the last balloting, we had a few people just handing out ballots and checking ballots.
Yeah. So we were originally planning on using RNE members' laptops. I did hear a few concerns about keyloggers. Given the fact that RNE did have paper access previously, I don't see that as big of a problem, but if people are that concerned about it, we can definitely look into having like bootable flash drives where it boots into a clean operating system that's not the RNE members' operating system, and then just go to the web browser because it's going to be a web-based application, so that would prevent any keylogging from happening on the RNE members' laptops.
Yeah, you guys mentioned you were using version control. Are you planning on open sourcing it for security audits?
So I believe Kyle wanted. Was it Kyle?
Yes.
Yeah. So Kyle was talking about open sourcing it. Personally, I think open sourcing it is not the worst idea. But if we do open source it, this is a guarantee that we'll make here. But we'll remove any kind of connection strings, hashes, passwords, any union-specific information from a central location. So the code base is going to have a settings file that has all this information. We'll strip it of everything before we open source it. So there's absolutely no way that anybody in the world will know our server addresses, password, hashes, user information, et cetera, et cetera. So it'll just be blank strings for the outside world. It'll be populated only when it's put into a production server locally hosted here at the Union. So,
okay.
With that, because we do finish and plan on finishing with the project by February, that does give us an awful lot amount of time for security testing that we can do as well.
I guess my question was, since it's going to be, I don't know what the specifics are going to be for when the actual system being used, but when we do it, when we did it last year, is you look at their ID and make sure they're the person in the picture, right? Is there any way to do that for this, or is it going to be making sure you're just looking at people?
We could do it a couple different ways. The main one being before they hop on the computer, you could just have the RNE member look at their card. So,
yeah,
I was wondering.
I'm going to be next. I had a question about people example, like switching shifts, if you're using RNE members' laptops, then like they're gonna be taking their laptops in and out all day, and they're probably gonna need to switch right at the peak times of voting. So like, is that gonna cause like traffic jams for voting?
RNE members generally have the entire day off, and we could either leave our computers there or just ensure that when we do have shifts between us at the 3 different poll locations, the other people get there ahead of time so they're already booted and ready to go before the other person has to leave. Or just the fact that if my laptop's in a poll station, I would be there all day, or I would need it for everything else since I'm not in classes that day.
That being said, it's not going to be an issue to like swap between systems since it's all going to a central location. It's all web based, so as long as an RE member authenticates into that system, they'd be able to submit votes from that new laptop once they swap out.
Just to clarify, the RNE member is the barrier between users being able to vote in their room and RNE being able to monitor who votes. So that's the only reason that happens.
I have 2 questions. The first one's pretty quick. You're using their RPI IDs, right? And the scanner is what, USB connected or?
Yeah. So we use them for the punch clocks right now in the union. So you just swipe in, and it grabs your RIN off the measurement strip.
And the second question I had was, if someone's in, let's say, a booth or whatever, and they have the laptop, what prevents them, I guess, from tampering with the laptop? Like, will you be able to lock it on that one site, or will people be able to just kind of mess around the whole time?
If I could just revert that question back. What do you mean, define tampering? What exactly do you mean when you say tampering? Like,
well, it's someone else's laptop that they're using to access a website, right? So I guess.
Yeah. So I mean, we could look into like a kiosk mode kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's
what I'm saying. Yeah, like
we
something
could definitely
like
look into that. But usually the RNE members they're not looking over your shoulder, but they are right there across the table. So if somebody's taking a little long, they probably notice that something's going on.
We're currently in the process of finishing up the research we need to do to create a proposal to the board to buy the card swipers for us to use in connection with the system. When the system's done and the card swipers are here, I'm in charge of personally trying to break it.
wonderful.
I get to break things to make sure they work. It's fun.
Elizabeth?
Yeah, I guess this is kind of like a 2-part question, but like one is, like right now you take your ballot and you can go off like into a corner and vote and make sure nobody's like looking over your shoulder. What's to prevent like the person behind you in line looking, and then going off of that for whether a person gets a mug or not, how would you make sure that the RNE member doesn't know how the person's voting but can still see like, oh yeah, this person doesn't get a mug because they voted?
So the first one, we could look into it. They're pretty cheap usually. I think there's screen shades, so like if you're not looking directly at the screen, like any other angle, it's darkened. So we can get some of those just put on the RNE screens if that's important to people. And then the second question was to confirm if people voted.
Yeah.
So that ending congrats screen was like, congrats, you voted. That's our saying, yep, you're good. Otherwise, it's going to be that, or hey, you've already voted with a giant red X or something.
They'll say your name and congrats.
Yeah. So that's our confirmation page that you voted, and you get the mug.
I'm just, again, asking about the logistics. RPI laptops don't last particularly long, especially when you're a senior. So what if the battery crashes or the internet doesn't work? Because sometimes the internet goes down, especially like this year.
I can take that question. One of 2 scenarios. So either the person's midway through voting, or they haven't started. Either scenario is the same. If they're midway through voting, the system hasn't officially sent any of the data over to the server, and therefore their vote is not registered. Their information's not saved midway through. Until they click that final submit button, nothing is saved anywhere. It's just a screen. So if the laptop does crash, they can boot back and nothing would have happened. They can swipe in again and continue, just start over. Because the information's not saved, it's not going to continue where they left off, so they're going to have to start the process over. But it's not that hard, right? I mean, they swipe and then they press their core and then choose their stuff. But
and then with it being a web app, that means anybody anybody's laptop could step in and take over that role if that laptop does die. So just if one person's computer does die, then we have to deal with that. But if we do lose power or something, I'm assuming we still have Scantrons as backup if we really need them. But if we have an outage of electricity, I think we'll have bigger problems than just elections.
If our internet goes down, it's a pretty large problem.
Paul mentioned earlier that you're doing an e-board proposal. Do you have a projected cost?
I think for the scan, it's just for the scanners mainly. If we do want to get those screen shades, I can look at the pricing for that as well. I think the scanners are, I want to say like $70 a piece. So it's not, we only need a few per, because we only have the 3 poll sites, so if we grab a few per poll site, that should be plenty. So it should be on just a few $100. And then I'll look into the pricing for the screen shades as well.
I know that you developed the system so it's not a web-based login. What is the cons of having a web-based?
It is a web-based login. It's just going to be like CAS, like you're logging in.
No, but like why can't I do it on my personal computer?
We wanted to keep like the tradition of voting alive, so we didn't want people to just vote in their room and mess up the whole process of getting the mugs. So we figured it's a nice tradition to have, and it's kind of more like a sentimental thing, but I think it's a nice thing to have people come out and vote at the poll sites rather than sitting in their room.
I just wanted to make sure, since it wasn't mentioned, are you gonna make sure that like when you select the candidates for like this Senate race, are the candidates gonna be like randomized or are they gonna be in a set order?
Yeah, we actually discussed that. I believe it is going to be randomized. There's no way that it's going to kind of suggest one person over the other. Either they're going to be at an equal level, or they're all going to be visible on page load, so that it's not the first thing visible, and that kind of biases people towards choosing that if they're lazy or something.
To add on to that, since nobody's asked it either, for write-ins, we're thinking of having a text box with a suggestion field underneath it. So if you are voting for class of 2015 president, only eligible people for that position would be suggested, but if you want to vote for the Moose, you can write in the Moose.
Alright, Gabe?
So you mentioned taking the user's RIN when they vote. How will that be associated with their vote? Will it be in the same table, or will that be kept separate and then you just keep a count of the number of votes that each candidate gets?
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. There's a table that says this RIN has voted, yes or no, and then there's a table that says this candidate has this many votes. So a vote will send 1, the RIN has voted, and 2, increment the number of votes for this specific candidate. They're not stored relationally, they're 2 separate tables, and that's how it's stored.
Okay.
And if we want to be super secure, we can throw in 2 different databases too.
So with the whole ring separate from the vote, does the ring do they get both sent at the same time?
No.
No.
So if Shoshana's thing happens and the computer crashes during the vote, the ring's already submitted, right?
It would have to happen in like the millisecond, or the short time between the 2 packages are sent in.
But I mean like when they put in their ring, it's not sent right away.
When they scan the initial RIN, it's making a call out to our database of like cohort and what your year is and all that to pull information to show to you. The actual submitting of the vote is when you hit submit at the end of, after going through all the races and confirming, you're saying, okay, I'm done with my vote.
So you can't get the ring, so I guess the ring, I'm just worried like if someone didn't get to submit their vote but their ring was already submitted, like would that happen?
It could only happen if
This nanosecond.
Okay, yeah.
And if in the case that it does happen, and this is more of an R&E thing, I can't speak for this, but if R&E ultimately decides, we could have a way to say, oh, this user, if they prove that their vote hasn't somehow, I don't know how they do this, but we could revert that and be like, okay, but I don't think
it'd be a
that's
little
gonna
tough with the anonymity.
There's no way to prove that they have or not, so I don't know if that's going to end up being a part of the system.
I noticed there's a lot of people concerned about the fact that you're using R&D computers to crash. I know that the VCC has a supply of computers that you can take out. Like if your computer's damaged, it might be worth looking into maybe having a few of those on the side. We're talking to the VCC about maybe having 1 or 2 of those that can be used.
If possible, definitely. That'd be cool. If not, I think the USB booting to a USB like a clean OS possibly the kiosk would be nice as well.
Yeah, just partly to address thing. I can't remember your name is Kirsten. Kristen's question. Part of the reason that we wanted to keep the on-site voting was just the whole tradition, blah blah blah. You have to be there to get your mug, and also it's a lot easier to see people being skeptical about the whole way the system works if you're able to vote from a remote location rather than you having to physically be there in front of us. Because
Yeah, to add on to what Paul was saying, the human verification of the voter is also nice. So.
I'm on the queue next. My question was, for the different things you're voting on, will those each be a separate page, or will it be like one really long page of candidates? Like if there's referendums and stuff, will that be like the next?
That's kind of up to RNE and how they ultimately want that laid out, but as of right now, my impression is that it's going to be one long page, and we can edit that very quickly and make it.
Also make it like a folder.
Yeah, we can make it like a collapsible view, so you can collapse what you finished and move on to the next one. It's kind of ultimately going to be a collaboration between RNE and us on how it's going to be viewed out. So they'll get what they want and we'll make what they want. So.
Jen? Is there a contingency for say if the server crashes?
So since we do have the code, it'd probably be really easy to spin up a second server if the first server dies. But it is a virtual server, and we do take nightly backups of our servers, replicating them. So if one server dies, we can just turn on the next one, and it's up in 2 or 3 minutes. So.
You're not going to have any required questions, right? Someone could swipe their in and then submit a blank ballot.
We could have the system handled, yeah. So.
Some people do that. They submit a blank ballot.
Yeah. If they choose to, that's their prerogative. They just can't.
Just
vote
making sure
again.
they can do that right, if you so choose.
Yeah. They have the right to.
Jen asked this a little bit, but is there any idea of having? No, it's good answer. It's cool.
Given that this is going to be web-based, do you have any plans to integrate it with the rules and elections site, maybe to link to candidates' profiles or to referendum information or something similar?
Yeah, that'd definitely be nice feature integration. Right now we're focusing just on voting, but if we can collaborate further with more of the RNE process, I feel like this site could definitely be built out more.
Yeah. Just because I realized we didn't actually really go over this, currently the process of how voting works is RNE prints the ballots using the Scantron machines, which tend to have a combination of either not working that well, breaking mid-process, or just finding some way to make everybody's lives more difficult, where the short version of the story is for freshman elections, it ended up being easier to do a hand count than to actually use the Scantrons correctly, since the printing holes decided they didn't want to line up with the holes that need to be lined up for the Scantron to be able to read it. So for the freshman elections, which are the fun, short election we have, since if we do go to a hand election, there are certain protocols we have to follow, including double verification counting for all of the votes. We were here till 3. So a combination of that, the fact that a lot of our peer institutions and schools we try to benchmark with have moved to electronic voting with either creating their own system or using various different purchased versions online, though the versions that the feedback we got tended to be that versions that were purchased from some outside vendor tended to be faulty or annoying or have something that was just inconvenient about them, was part of the reason we decided we wanted to make this a thing, because I'm not. And also the whole fun thing that happened last year.
Adding to that a little bit, what you said about faultiness, since my group is paid to do what we do, so we're literally right across. If RNE decided that something's not working, or last minute something breaks, something happens, or this needs to be added right now, we're here. We're literally students here, we can fix it on the fly. So there's a benefit to that. And also about servers crashing, since I know it's been a question. This school actually had electronic voting, I believe in the 70s. Mr. Nasadowski downstairs mentioned that they did do voting on IBM mainframes back in the day. So if they could do it back then, I can guarantee you we could do it. We could do it now.
And to add to why we chose to develop it over buying a pre-built solution, the fact that we already have all this information about cohort rather than dealing with importing data and manipulating it to exactly what we need. We're already halfway there basically, so developing a solution on top of the existing data we had would be much easier.
Yeah, just a quick thing. So this last general election, somebody got really mad that we ran out of mugs and put a ballot at us. Computer is kind of something you don't want people throwing. Is there any way you can like have the computer secure, or something so that if somebody gets really mad at you?
We could look into
Probably like not gonna happen, but
if we need to, we could look into desk logs, but I don't think that'll be necessary.
Also, since I'm also a member of the GM Week committee, I can tell Daniel that he better not screw that up. Daniel's
Order
saying,
enough mugs.
I'll
What?
stick to the queue.
Oh, yeah, so it seems like this is proceeding at a really good rate, and I'm impressed with how things are coming together. What plans do you have to bring people in to test this? I like that you're going open source, and I like that you're inviting people to test the framework and having Paul try to break it as hard as he can. What plans do you have to bring outside people in?
So during winter break, we're planning on doing some internal testing, reaching out to Arnie at least, and then once we're back at school, those first 2 weeks, we kind of want to hold at least like a mock election or something. We'll leave it open. It'll probably end up just being student government because people don't want to come to just do a mock election when it means nothing. But we might have like Arnie people set up in the student government suite, and student government officials can swipe their cards, pretend they're voting for something, and make sure the whole process works fine. Also during that time, the security testing might also occur.
My current test for me trying to break it was to get a very large bowl of candy, a table, and cable into DCC asking people to like swipe and vote for some nonsensical thing and give them candy because people like candy.
Good idea. You can also do that.
I was gonna have a similar suggestion. If you got GM Week on it, I don't know when they're planning to reveal their theme, but maybe they could like tie in the theme to the mock voting, or maybe they could have a fun mock voting where you vote on Alfred Baldwin or some other inanimate objects and like get people more interested in the mock election by like bringing it into like a GM Week.
Yeah.
Like,
Definitely, if we make it fun and for the users that are testing it, I definitely think that.
Yeah, we'll have Easter eggs. We'll have Easter eggs.
To put on my third different hat, with GM Week, we're currently working on planning the unveiling, so at this stage it's still flexible, so I can talk to them about making sure we do that. And also, Arthur Galpin apparently is kind of annoyed about himself turning into a joke since he actually used to be a student here. So we may not put his name into a system just because he's apparently kind of annoyed about this being a thing every year.
Aaron, where'd you do this?
Don't worry about it.
Could you go into detail about the security testing? We made a post about the GPM and some people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I saw that. I was talking about it, definitely just using the internal knowledge, just taking a look at it from a security perspective, as if we didn't know anything about the application, or if we just know the source code. Definitely doing internal testing. It was also suggested to me to maybe take like RPI stack and have them try to hack away at it. So we might look into that as well. And then if we do open source it, having a reply, maybe like a bug fix email. So if somebody finds a bug that they'd like to polish up, then they can send it to us and we'll get a notification of that, take care of that.
Anybody else?
So like, let's say worst case scenario, someone does find a bug in it just during the election, and is there any possibility of, or any idea of having the backup ballots, just paper-written ballots, at the stations in case something disastrous may happen to the site? That's the first thing that comes to mind instead of what happens if we all die.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think that's an RU-wide decision. If we do have this, maybe for the first election that we do with the electronic voting, it might be good to have the backups. But ultimately, I can't speak for all of Arnie. But I think maybe having it at least around for the first election with the electronic voting, I think would be a good idea.
They can always manually just add their own tally to the final results. About the results that's printed. The results are going to be printed in a way that it's just the user, like the candidate, and then the number of votes. So if that ever occurs and RNE decides to do a paper ballot thing last minute, they can add their personal tally to the system generated up till the point that it crashed, if it ever did.
All right, thank you guys. This concludes our presentations for this meeting. We do have one motion on the agenda. However, with the union printers all offline, we were unable to print the minutes. Did everyone get a good read for them last week after they were distributed?
Yeah.
I don't know, you wrote them, were they?
No, I sent them to you.
Oh, just us?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just that
Is that a thing? Yeah,
I thought that was that email that I got when some folks sent it.
I also thought that was the whole sentence. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna wait on that till next week, which will help because then we can actually have a printed motion. So we're gonna move right on to committee reports. And we'll start with R&E. Paul?
See presentation. You guys know we're at the electronic voting. We're continuing to make progress on the referendum stuff. And we're also going to have a new meeting time for the rest of the semester, which, yeah, that's good.
What's the time?
Don't worry about it.
What's the time?
We haven't finished money splitting yet,
Okay,
okay?
fair enough.
Gosh.
Just change on the Google Calendar.
Yeah.
Huh?
Okay. All right. So AAC, Marcus.
Right now, AAC is going through a lot of big changes, but we're making a lot of progress on our projects. We found out one of our projects has a pilot for it already going, run by the administration, and we found that out after we talked to them. So now we need to figure out how to get their pilot of our idea into like a way that we can actually get input on it. We are currently looking for a new communications lead if anybody is interested in that. And we're making pretty good progress on the research archive, and that will is projected to be done by the end of the semester. Meeting times 7 to 8 Thursdays.
Do you have a plan for this to get brought up before the Senate by the end of the semester, or is it going to be in a workable stage? Or what?
It should be in a workable. It should be presentable by the last meeting of the Senate, so that's going to be a fun one.
Okay. Let me know about that as soon as you can. That agenda is already very packed.
I know.
All right. Thank you, Jen. SGC.
SGC will be tabling this week. If you guys could please, I sent a link. If you could sign up for just half an hour, that would really help us out. It'll just be in the DCC from 9 to 4 p.m. We're gonna try to focus on pet-friendly housing and the research directory as 2 issues we're advertising to students. We'll also have the one-pagers available. It's really our chance to reach out, get students informed on the major projects, as well as draw some attention to the Senate if anyone's interested, in joining any of our committees. Other than that, we've been postering for universal access, and we have membership for HSAC, as well as postering for the survey. We could definitely use some more members, especially since we lost the publicity chair. So, if you're interested, Tuesdays 8 to 9 in SGS.
Thanks, Jen. Michael, FSC.
So all of our projects are progressing. Let's see. The one I was going to talk about was. I was going to talk about.
We can come back to you.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, HSAC.
I apologize for feeling under the weather and I'm sitting over there so you don't get sick. I was told I was supposed to be here for quorum and ended up not voting anyway. So HSAC, we met with Hospitality Services last Wednesday to kind of update them on where we're at with meal plans, to kind of suggest some things that we thought we'd like to look into, and they loved our ideas, so we're going to be moving forward with creating those proposals right now, actually, is proposal writing stage. We'll meet tomorrow at 6 p.m. as usual. Still looking for members, so feel free to ask some people or start by yourselves. Any questions?
Yeah, have you been contacted by anyone following communications poster campaign?
Not at this time, no.
Okay.
Still working on it though.
that might be a good one to feature with the table and
Okay.
continue to push HSAC numbers. All right, thank you, Joe. Lexi, SLC.
All right, so SLC and two of our project groups were working on drafting proposals for residence hall renovations that Kate's working on, and also a proposal for full service pharmacy that we're working on with Jessica. Also, the posters for universal access have been working for us. I've gotten 4 students that have emailed me those so far, so they are being effective. And yeah, I guess that's what our committee's doing, working hard. Feel free to come 6 to 7 Wednesday, SGS.
All right, thank you. Paul, student policy.
See previous note about emails? We're working on universal access now instead of handbook, plot twist.
Instead of?
Handbook.
Well, why instead of?
Because we've reached the point we can get to with handbook until we actually get the handbook. So we have everything planned out and everything we'll do when we get the handbook. We just need it to actually move forward with more stuff or continue conversations with people.
Has Dean Smith been in correspondence at all since he visited 2 weeks ago?
He talked to you? No.
Okay. We can talk about that later. For now, Gabe, look back.
Nothing too significant this week. We're going to be picking up the slack on the petition site, so that'll be ready for our presentation next week. The purchases did go through for shuttle tracking, so we're going to be getting those in hopefully by the end of the month. There's a slight issue with the hardware supply, but it should be resolved. They're a lot smaller and a lot easier for everyone to manage, so you can just swap them in and out between shuttles. Other than that, I think Justin was working on the front-end layout for the Student Senate website and making some progress with that. Yeah, that's about it.
All right, thank you. Tina, website.
So tomorrow night is the keyboard focus group for the website, and that's from 7 to 8 in the union room that I sent out. Thank you, 24. So that's going to focus on e-board. We're going to do the same thing that we did for Senate last week. So encourage e-board to go.
Thanks, Tina. Morgan, CRC.
Okay, so I just got back from a presentation and meeting with the mayor today, and heard about a little bit of financials of the city of Troy. On one of our projects that we're working on, we're waiting to hear back from the bid for one of the events we want to put on for next semester, and once again, our meetings are Thursdays from 8 to 9.
Thank you. I'll give Nathan's report for Constitution. Constitution at this point has discussed the Independent Council, Student Senate, and Executive Board, but only loosely. They're still struggling with membership and don't want to settle on any formalized language until they have proper representation from the various groups. Currently, he has no senator consistently in attendance, and as the Senate, it's our chief, well, the Constitution is one of our chief duties. So I would like at least 2 of you guys to begin attending Nate's meetings. Just get in touch with me after if you're interested. Again, the Union Constitution is the document that governs the way all of student government operates and the various power, authority, and limitations on each of the groups. So it's important that its end result is fair and properly representative of student need. So get in touch with me after, or email Nate James at jamesn2@rpi.edu, and he can put you on the committee. Paul, you got something?
The committee meets during another committee's meeting time, so that could be moved.
What's the meeting time?
It's Thursday, 7 p.m.
Yes. At Community Affairs,
No, UAR is Tuesdays.
Isn't there something else Thursday though that's more
Maybe, but between the e-board and the Senate, there are a lot of committees, so there will be a conflict almost no matter where this is. But I will talk to Nathan about seeing if he can schedule it for a time that doesn't conflict. All right, so Shoshana, e-board.
Last week, the executive board approved a change in income for the line item associated with Friends of the Pride Alliance's drag show that they hold every semester. They just held it for this semester, so it wasn't adjusted for the fall, but it will be adjusted for the spring. And then when they come into budgeting, they're going to adjust it in their new budget proposal. Other than that, we approved a starter club budget for women's club soccer. If
you remember previously Men's Club Soccer came into us, so we did a comparable budget for them so they can perform they can play in the spring league and get some equipment, because right now they're relying on the members' equipment. And then additionally, we looked at a club/organization registration form. So this is a requirement being put down by the institute as a whole, not coming from the union, but because the union already houses so many of our student groups, we're going to be taking the initiative to see it through. So basically the purpose of it is just to see what organizations exist officially and what organizations they work with, either if it's the union or another academic department per se, so that way we can more effectively sunset clubs that no longer exist. Because right now we tell people when they come to RPI, we have over 200 student organizations. It'd be nice if we had an exact number, because we are a vast school and people like numbers.
Will there be any concerts coming to RPI? Because I think that...
Concerts?
Yeah, something like that. I think it was suggested when...
Yeah, there's an official group called UPAC Concerts. Their budget varies year by year because concerts are expensive. This particular year, they're going to have a series of 4 concerts from local people. For a full list, see UPAC Concerts, and I'll forward you the information I have later.
Thank you.
About this form, is it a form to register clubs with, like, is the institute issuing this form to clubs, or is it something going through the union simply to compile data that we can then give the institute if necessary?
The form is going to apply for all student groups. It's just going through the union so that we have the majority of them already. So we're going to act as the stakeholders to hold the information until it's all compiled.
It's the letter. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Shosh. Kristen, Grad Council.
The Grad Council had a very successful movie night last Friday. We had 133 graduate students come, an estimated 30 plus guests. The only thing left for this semester will be our wine and cheese night on Friday, December 5th.
All right, thank you. James, IFC.
Alright, so the next IFC e-board is getting nominated currently, and SIGEP is selling breakfast sandwiches for charity. That's it.
Thank you. Morgan Penn.
Then same thing with panel tonight, slating's going on and voting to see whether or not that's created.
All right, thank you. Now, Michael, do you want to finish your report?
So yeah, we are gonna start tabling or like surveying people at the Mueller Center very soon. So if you want some changes in the Mueller Center, we're gonna be serving people there, so please go there. Besides that, nothing significant. We meet Tuesdays at 5 on SJs.
Alright, thank you.
Also join Slack.
So now, my report. First, as I said at the beginning of this meeting, I have been noticing people using a lot of laptops in the meetings. That's not so bad when we're just doing committee reports or voting on like approval of minutes, but if we have a major motion or a presenter up in front, I'd like you guys to be respectful, keep the laptops closed and the phones off. They deserve our full attention, and with the effort they go into to come here and present, it's the least we can do. Beyond that, I mean, as most of you noticed, we started a little late today due to quorum issues. Those who were not in attendance were largely excused, but I want you guys to be aware that we have a larger Senate this year. We have 25 voting members currently out of the total 26. This means our quorum is 17 people, so it is very easy to miss that if a lot of people can't make it. So just remember to make these meetings a priority, as we need to have quorum as a voting body to get things done, especially in the coming weeks as we have several projects that we're going to be voting on by the end of this semester. Understood? All right, and finally, on a lighter note, the Student Senate survey has been viewed by approximately, or has been signed by approximately 800 people so far. So we have easily exceeded our metric. Congratulations. As a result, we will be putting together some kind of end of semester celebration for the Senate. So nice job getting everything done.
Party at the Gold House!
Starting after tonight at midnight, I'll be working with Jen to release the results publicly, as they'll now be considered public. We'll continue to accept them, but those will be for our internal records. The public document will be based on on where the results stand tonight at midnight. Make sense? All right, so that's all I have. Do we have any unfinished business, new business?
Nice haircut. That's all it was.
Do you want that to go in minutes?
Oh yeah, thank
See, got it very
you.
nice.
Tina wants to remind everyone, and I should as well, that the student leadership brunch is this Saturday. Is it 10 or 11? I have it. At 10 a.m.
You got emailed about it.
Yeah, we all got emailed about it. It's this Saturday at 10 a.m. You get to sit up on what? Yeah.
I think it's 11:30.
Oh, it's 11:30? Okay. Well, check your emails. I will double check as well, and I'll send the official time out to the Senate. But I would go to that. You get to interface with Dr. Jackson and the cabinet.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun. You get to go to the football game right afterward. Dutchman's shoes. We get to beat up on Union. So
Again.
Again. All right. Anything else? Any other new business?
Nope, no one else is busy.
All right, then. Thank you guys for coming. Have a good night, everybody. Meeting is adjourned.